Monkey.
In a recent interview with Fight Hub TV, Gervonta Davis accuses Ryan Garcia of juicing, and he says the reason Ryan Garcia isn't having a tune-up fight before our fight is because he's trying to cycle PEDs. Now, I'm no expert on PEDs, but what I do know about PEDs is the effects of PEDs obviously aren't lifelong. They essentially wear off after a certain amount of time, and I guess he's just trying to insinuate that, you know, he wants to avoid tests because when you fight, you got to get tested, and in order to, cycle out the PEDs, he's got to avoid being tested, hence avoiding a scheduled tune-up fight before the Gervonta Tank Davis fight. And Gervonta Tank Davis and Ryan Garcia also had a back and forth on Twitter. Now it's really hard to put the tweets up for you guys because Gervonta Davis does this bizarre thing where he tweets and then he deletes it moments later. Pretty much whenever Gervonta Tank Davis tweets, you just know he's going to delete it within the first 30 minutes. I don't know why he does it. It's odd because people are going to screenshot the tweet anyway. But yeah, I'll read some of, the exchanges back and forth. Apologies, if I can't get it on screen for you guys. Ryan Garcia tells Gervonta Tank Davis, I think Tank is just dumb and can't hold a conversation for 5 minutes. Tank responds and says, you mad I said you juicing? The truth always hurts. You the dumb F. The paperwork shows it, dumbass. And now some fan on social media says we don't claim him. He doesn't even speak Spanish. And this is referring to Ryan Garcia, and Gervonta Davis says, lol, he just jacking the culture, thinking they're gonna back him. He's a young punk, his dad make him box. He don't really want to box, more like he wanted to be a model. They continue to exchange, several messages. Gervonta Tank Davis mentions, I think he snatches Ryan Garcia's chain. I heard about that actually quite a while ago. Apparently, Gervonta Davis snatched Ryan Garcia's chain in some club. And Tank Davis is a street dude, so in the streets, that's a sign of disrespect. But Ryan Garcia isn't really a street guy like that, so that's probably not of as much significance to Ryan Garcia as it is to Gervonta Tank Davis. And Tank Davis also says that Ryan Garcia is not a real Mexican, but I don't really want to get into that, guys. I want to talk about, whether Ryan Garcia could be juicing or whether he's not necessarily, these other shenanigans that Tank Davis and Ryan Garcia talk about. Now, a lot of people have been claiming that, in particular photos, that Ryan Garcia is looking, increasingly bigger, that he's looking more muscular, that he doesn't look like how he looks in weigh-ins. Now, that's very invalid because in a weigh-in, a fighter is weight drained and he's sucked up. And when a fighter isn't in training camp, that's where you can really tell how big a fighter is. For example, I was seeing photos of Rolly Romero, and Rolly Romero looked huge. And this is Rolly Romero, who is not in a training camp. He's just, I guess he's trying to stay fit, stay in decent shape. And he still had like a set of abs on him, but he looked humongous. He looked like he was like, I think he posted a picture and he was like 176 pounds. Rolly Romero, fights at 135 pounds. So a lot of these guys are, several pounds heavier than the, actual weight class they campaign at. Some of these guys are cutting 20, 30, 40 pounds. I mean, I heard Errol Spence Jr. one time say that he got up to as heavy as 190 pounds. And he fights at 147 pounds. So fighters, when they're not in training camp, they can look way bigger than they do in fight night, because in fight night, they only have, 1 day to hydrate. In the weigh-in, they're all sucked up, they're all dry, and they have no water weight in their body. So when people say that Ryan Garcia is looking bigger, yeah, he's looking bigger, but I don't particularly think there's anything unnatural about Ryan Garcia in terms of his physique. Yeah, he looks big, but Devin Haney looks big when he's not in training camp. Shakur Stevenson looks quite big. Many fighters look big when they're not in training camp because they just naturally have a big frame, but obviously during the weigh-in, whilst they're cutting weight, they're bringing themselves down a lot in weight, and they're essentially becoming as skinny as possible just to make weight. Now, on the other hand, you'll find fighters who barely cut weight. Jake Paul is a good example. Jake Paul, I think, walks around, 196 pounds, and I think he fights at about 190. I've seen him, like be 190. I think he also fights at 200 pounds, which is the official weight for a cruiserweight. So Jake Paul is an example of a fighter who just doesn't cut that much weight. Maybe you could say he doesn't want to drain himself. I heard Jake Paul mention that, he wants to be the light heavyweight champion of the world, which means he would have to cut down to 175 pounds. So maybe in the near future we could see him genuinely cutting weight. But as of right now, this stage in his career, he's not used to cutting weight. He doesn't cut a whole lot of weight. But you've got fighters on the other hand, like Errol Spence, who balloon up in weight to 190 pounds and have to shrink down to 147 pounds on weigh-in. You've got guys like Billy Joe Saunders. I mean, if you guys have seen photos of Billy Joe Saunders, he looks like he's 220 at least when he's not in training camp. I mean, he is really heavy. And this is someone who campaigns at 160? He fought Canelo at 168 pounds, but he's fought at 160. So fighters outside of training camp can gain a lot of size. Now, it doesn't mean there's no validity to what, Gervonta Tank Davis has said. A lot of fighters, are cycling PEDs. A lot of fighters have been caught. Oscar Valdez was trying to cheat against Shakur Stevenson. And listen, the fight had to get rescheduled because he was on PEDs. Conor Benn, listen, I'm not trying to catch a case, but, the fight was called off because Ben was allegedly popped for PEDs. And I know Conor Benn is trying to come out and say, oh, well, I'm innocent and I've proven my innocence. But have you really proven your innocence? Because the fight with Chris Eubank Jr. hasn't been rescheduled. He's moved on from that fight. He's got a fight coming up soon. And from my knowledge, there've not been any, superficial, paperwork shown to the public, any tests that have come back. So, in my books, he hasn't necessarily proven his innocence. So many fighters do use PEDs, and I suspect a lot more fighters do use PEDs. They just don't get caught. A lot of people think that Anthony Joshua was on TRT, testosterone replacement therapy. They say that Anthony Joshua had an unnatural amount of muscle gain in a very short period of time. I've seen a lot of people in the third fight with Wilder and Tyson Fury accuse Wilder of PEDs, saying that how did Wilder go from 212 to 238? Many people argue that fighters who are like superstars, they can get away with using PEDs because they have so much financial mileage. They put bums on seats that essentially, VADA and all these testing and promoters and promotional companies will turn a blind eye to potentially positive tests and keep it a secret, from the media, and lie about, a certain fighter passing a test when in reality they failed. I believe Nate Diaz, in UFC said that all of them are on PEDs, that all the fighters are cycling, that they're all using drugs. People have accused, UFC heavyweight champion Francis Ngannou of, using PEDs. Conor McGregor recently, I've seen him accused of using PEDs. Now, I think it's a situation where when someone has a lot of muscle, they accuse them of PEDs. You have people who are more mesomorphic, who can just naturally carry a lot of muscle and not be on PEDs. Tyson is a clear example. Now, I'm not saying Tyson didn't use PEDs. I actually think later on in his career, he was using PEDs, or he may have been using PEDs. Not that he definitely was. I don't know. I wasn't there. But earlier on in his career, even when Tyson was a 14, 15, 16-year-old, you could see he was a person who was just extremely muscle-bound, and he has very dense bones. So being really big and muscular doesn't necessarily mean you're on PEDs, but for some people it can be very suspicious. There's many different types of body structures. You've got guys who are slightly larger, carry more body fat. They call them endomorphs. Skinnier guys like a Deontay Wilder, more ectomorphic guys, and you've got muscular guys like a Mike Tyson who are more mesomorphic, or like an Anthony Joshua. But Tyson is a better example than AJ because Tyson is more naturally muscular. So yeah, I don't believe that Ryan Garcia is on PEDs. Though I wouldn't be entirely shocked if he were to fail a test, or if it were to come out in the future that he was on PEDs, because I feel like a lot of fighters are actually on PEDs, but we just don't know about it. I feel like there have been a lot of fighters who have potentially got away with using PEDs, but because, they're superstars, they put bums on seats, people turn a blind eye. I genuinely believe that. Now, I'm not going to accuse individual fighters of using PEDs, because that would be wrong of me to falsely accuse anybody, but those were just my thoughts on Gervonta Davis accusing Ryan Garcia of using PEDs. Do you guys think that Ryan Garcia is on steroids, TRT, whatever he could possibly be on? I don't know. I'm not no expert with, drugs, but let me know. Do you agree with Tank Davis? Do you disagree? Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment. Alright, peace.